So what was your music inspiration when you were growing up?
Well, initially it was all classical.
Really?
Yeah. That was like my dad he played classical instrument. He played a lot of stuff.
You're kidding.
Yeah. And I think his main thing was the French horn. So naturally, like, we were pushed into that direction to play. Not pushed, but persuaded. Not even persuaded.
Influenced.
Influenced.
Yeah.
Parent quotes. Influenced.
Right.
In a very positive way. There was no pressure ever from him to do anything. But yeah, so we had like classical, we listened to a lot of like classical music stuff. And then 6th grade, 7th grade years, you start, peers. So Green Day was big.
Oh, yeah.
Coolio.
Yeah.
Coolio?
Yeah.
Fugees.
Okay.
I like the Fugees. Wyclef.
Okay. I don't know that one last one.
Wyclef? Oh, man. Wyclef is cool.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'm 39, dude. So I'm a little bit older.
What does that put you at? 77? 77.
Yeah.
77. That's a nice number. I like that.
Well, see, I grew up in Salinas too, so it's all R&B.
Okay.
And that was a lot when the gangster rap came in. It was a very weird time, but we could go off on tangents on that.
Sure.
But so, what did your dad do? Because I know you were in Malaysia, Japan, back here in the States.
So yeah, my dad got his basically like teaching his master's in teaching English as a foreign language.
Oh, okay.
And there was opportunities abroad to put that to use. I think that was his intention. So Malaysia, I don't know the exact, it was through like a program that was stateside. Maybe they had set up a university satellite program in Malaysia. And then Japan, University of Southern Illinois, had an extension there. And then from then, we kind of transitioned to Japanese universities, or he transitioned to teaching at Japanese universities. Wow. And and then moved to Tokyo. Yeah,
I had no idea. I wanted to ask you last time, like, how did you just jump from country to country, and now here you are? But that's interesting. So you kind of fell into your father's trade, more or less.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as teaching goes?
As far as teaching, yeah.
I think, my whole family my mom is a teacher. She teaches art now. When we were in Japan, she taught English.
Is that right?
I guess my grandma, she taught, she retired from teaching, 30 plus years of teaching. Let's see. My grandma on my other side was and is a teacher.
Dang.
So yeah, everybody's like teaching oriented. My brother now, he just finished his special education credential at Sac State. So
okay.
He's been teaching for, I think he just finished his first year, like officially, and he just got his master's degree.
Jeez.
Woohoo.
Dang.
So yeah, a lot of teachers.
A lot of lineage. That's awesome. I thought about going into teaching too.
Did you?
Yeah. I loved English. I loved, the writing part of it. And then this gal came along, and then I had to switch my major, and that's another story. So, no, but are you the only one in your family that does jiu-jitsu? Wrestling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My brother wrestled. He was a better wrestler than I was.
What?
Through high school.
How's that possible?
And then there's a lot of guys better than me. Anyways, but he was a better wrestler than I was. And in college, I don't think it was like he was as passionate about it transitioning after
Did you go to
high
Sac
school.
State?
Yeah, he ended up going to Sac State. Not directly. I think he transferred from Sierra College to Sac State. Mm-hmm. So, but he continued like wrestling as a casual hobby. And in wrestling, it's kind of hard to do. You're either all in or not in at all, which is sad. It's kind of sad.
Do you think that's the same thing with jiu-jitsu though?
No, jiu-jitsu, you can do it 2 to 3 times a week. Get the good benefits of working out, being around positive people that want to, contribute to have jiu-jitsu contribute to their healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
And So I think it's something that you can be much more casual about.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to compete. In wrestling, competing and practicing goes almost hand in hand.
Yeah.
So I think it's totally different. I think the mindset, like you hear, like, what's the wrestling? Oh, it's like in wrestling, there's this mindset, like I can't quote it exactly, but basically, people are getting, you start your wrestling season and like coaches are like proud that they started with 50 and they ended with 20.
Mm-hmm.
20
to break
wrestlers.
thin the herd, huh?
Yeah, because it's so tough.
Compared.
And I think there's something cool about that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, when you talk about making wrestling popular and having it be a spectator sport and getting people involved, because numbers is power too.
Mm-hmm.
Jiu-Jitsu does that much better, unfortunately. I think wrestling could do it. I think it definitely has the potential to be an inclusive thing, where wrestlers are not necessarily introverted. They're extroverted, and they're trying to get more people involved and included into the sport of wrestling. I think that's one thing that wrestling suffers or could be doing better at. But yeah.
With jiu-jitsu, it seems like it's a family environment, friendly environment. You're a martial artist, so at least.
I think so is wrestling, though. I think so. I mean, yeah. Do you not feel the same way?
Well, I never did wrestling,
so
I'm just kind of getting the contrast of it. And with jiu-jitsu, it's like an extended family. In your school specifically, it really caters to a full development. So I always felt like I'm a better person when I come off the mat.
I think wrestling has that element.
Yeah,
definitely.
So that's I'm interested to hear, because what I think of a martial artist, what the world thinks is the label of martial artist, and then wrestling has that same too. That's kind of a surprise to me.
I think wrestling's a martial art just as much as anything else.
Really?
Just as much as jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai,
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. It has a strong sport element to it. But if you think about what amateur wrestling is and where it came from professional, like catch wrestling, right? The idea of like basically beating, when people talk about Abraham Lincoln and him wrestling, and he had like these long not 30 minutes, but hour and a half, 2-hour matches. Yeah, look it up. And he, it's like one of the things like, Abraham Lincoln was a wrestler. You'll see the wrestling that he was doing wasn't the 6-minute, or high school 6-minute, college 7-minute match.
Did Abraham Lincoln have a singlet?
Oh yeah, of course he did. He walked around
in
a singlet.
As a matter of fact, I think I've seen pictures of him. But anyway, go ahead.
I think it had, Faithful Abe or what? Not
Favorite Flav?
I didn't say that.
So anyway, off track. But Abraham Lincoln was a wrestler, and there's an element going. History.
But
there's a long history in that.
But that wrestling, right? The match didn't end until the person gave up.
Wow.
Right, which is what? A submission.
Right.
Which is a tap. Right.
Dang.
That's what we think of now, or we've defined as like catch wrestling or submission wrestling, right? Until somebody says uncle, and these long matches that they talk about, in wrestling matches. That I think, if you've been a wrestler, you'll find out that a lot of famous people wrestled before. I'm going off on a tangent.
There's no such thing as a tangent. That's why it's cool.
So there's a lot of really cool stories of famous people from your history lessons that wrestled, but the wrestling when they talk about isn't the high school wrestling where they wore their headgear, they had their mouthpiece in, and they went in for 6 minutes and they were done. It was a long, grueling match.
It sounds
to get
like
the person to give up.
Okay, give me an idea. Since I'm not of that background at all.
Sure.
Okay, you and me, we walk on the mat.
Think of it as modern day in jiu-jitsu, submission only matches with no time limits.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's what it was.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah.
And maybe they wore clothes. Maybe they took their jackets off. Right? So you get a more gi you get like a no-gi kind of thing.
But there wasn't any punching or anything like that.
No, it was wrestling.
Okay.
Right? Which is basically jiu-jitsu, which is basically judo.
Right.
But there was no referee. Nothing was like illegal because they didn't know what was too dangerous, right, or harmful for the person.
Right.
However, you could get them to submit or give up or say stop, you won.
Right.
You know, so that was, and the only way you could do that is through a submission, or you exhausted them, you wore them out.
Yeah.
Definitely, you had to conserve your energy. You couldn't just go all out and be done and be spent in 3 or 4 minutes.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting to think about the history of wrestling, but our current amateur folk style wrestling, the collegiate wrestling that people do now in high school and college.
How different is that?
Middle school. That came from that wrestling, right? It was a simplification of the rules. I don't know what year, you know, I don't know exactly when the rules became simplified and universal. I was just at the California Hall of Fame banquet. One of our college teammates, Derek Moore, he was a NCAA champion in 2007, outstanding wrestler of the tournament. He was just inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Wow, cool.
Which is really cool. And it was cool to be there too. But one of the honorary inductees that they had, or Lifetime Achievement Awards, was talking about a gentleman who had put points to help scoring of wrestling. And I got to look up his name because I heard that and I thought that was really interesting. I thought he would, you know, if I think he's still alive, and you know, talking to him, getting an interview with him would be really interesting.
Yeah.
But
not to sidetrack you, but doesn't wrestling now? I mean, it goes back way back to in terms of early history.
Yeah.
Like the Roman period, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know anything about that part?
Yeah, so I'm not a historian, and I could be wrong. This is all just my like everything that I've said so far is like my interpretation as I see how wrestling has evolved over the last hundreds of years.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then my interpretation of the wrestling. So again, wrestling initially, what was it like back in the day? You know, it was again a submission only match.
Yeah.
To get the person to quit. Right. And it's not like you went to a school to learn technique. You just kind of wrestled. You know, you grabbed them by the head. Does this hurt? Yeah, it hurts. Okay, that's a good move.
Boom. Right. I mean,
right?
Thousands of years of
that. I think I just broke your arm. Right? You know, which is jiu-jitsu, right? Which is judo. You know, which is sambo. If you look at every culture, you know, you find it's Indian wrestling, Mongolian wrestling. Not every culture, I can't generalize that much, but there's a lot of cultures that still today, Japanese sumo wrestling, you know, you can still find elements of wrestling that have become a sport, that have become traditional, and they're, you know, maybe they have spiritual elements, so they have these rituals that go along with it. The Mongolian, if you've never had a chance to watch like Mongolian wrestling, go check it out on YouTube.
Really?
It's really cool. Yeah, they all gather on a field. There's this like celebratory dance after you win your match.
Wow. But
you keep fighting. Once you lose, you're out, but you keep fighting on this open field, and it's basically just like a takedown or a throw. Person wins the bout, I guess.
Like I'm envisioning like a double leg, single leg, or
a lot of throws. But yeah, you do see the double leg, single leg. It's like sumo wrestling, but they wear this little leather vest that you can grab onto, which helps the throws. Wow. And then they have like these leather, like leather pants that you can grab to use the guys to throw them. But it's really cool to watch. If you just go look up like traditional Mongolian wrestling. Really cool. And that's why you see actually in Japan. So in Japan, they have these things. Sumo has these rankings, and the highest ranking, almost like divine status, is the Yokozuna.
Really?
Yeah. Are you familiar with sumo at all?
Only like in Street Fighter, that sumo guy.
Who was that guy?
Man.
He did this.
Right. Do you use that?
No.
No, you don't. Okay. Dumb question.
In sumo, they do. Yeah.
They do?
Yeah. They have this. This is like, I can't remember the name of the move,
Yeah.
but it's like an spuddy. This
Oh,
is called
man.
spuddy. And like spuddy is like, man, how do I
So
don't know the.
Those guys are like the Michael Jordans of their sport, or because you said divine status. I'm thinking that they're highly.
Yeah. So, anyways, once you get to yokozuna, you're divine. You can always rank down until you get to yokozuna. You can't rank down anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the highest rank that you can achieve. And once you get to yokozuna, you have to retire. You have to realize at some point, like you're either, you have to come to an acceptance that you're done. You shouldn't be competing anymore, and you retire. Or
Right.
maybe you injure it out, so you're forced into retirement or something like that. But right now, I think there's 2 yokozunas, and they're both from Mongolia.
Really?
Yeah.
What a trip.
Maybe 3, but I'm pretty sure there's 2 or 3.
And they're in Japan.
And for the last yes, and then for the last 10 years or so, there's only been Mongolian yokozunas.
No kidding.
Yeah.
One of my friends, Sid.
Yeah, I know Sid. Yeah.
Sid Ramirez. Yeah. Unfortunately, he went. He was fighting in a jiu-jitsu tournament, and it was a Mongolian judo. I think he's a champion of some sort.
Okay.
And got tossed and got hurt bad, and I felt really bad. So anyway, that background, I had no idea Mongolians came from either judo or their own style of wrestling. That's very unique.
They have a really good wrestling team too. It's not the richest country, right? So even if you do become a really good Mongolian wrestler in Mongolia, I don't know how much the profits are, right? I don't know what your earnings are. But if you take that skill and you go to Japan and you become a yokozuna sumo wrestler, you're living big.
It kind of seems like a cool lifestyle. You get to eat whatever you want, and you get to push people around, and then people.
It's harsh, man. Dude, have you seen documentaries? You gotta watch. Watch some documentaries. CNN has some really good documentaries on sumo wrestlers.
And it's not as glamorous as I'm thinking.
No, because when you come in, you're. Can I swear on this?
You definitely can swear.
Okay.
Which word is he gonna use?
You're like, I don't even know if I'm using it correctly, but you're like bottom bitch. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
Like you're like totally bottom. You're doing everything. You don't even get to train.
When you first start?
Yeah, when you first start, you're doing all the chores. You're cooking, you're cleaning, you're making sure like everything is prepared for the higher ups to prepare. And then once they're done training, they do the same thing in Karate Kid.
Makes him like wax cigar.
Yeah, but he didn't get like slapped around, right? But these guys have to like serve their, like, it's like the ultimate martial arts in practice, because you live in where you're gonna, in the stable that you're training. So, you're basically like turning into Clydesdales, right? You're trained to become the most, the thoroughbred.
And so this is going on now. This isn't like.
Oh yeah,
that's true.
Oh yeah, this is current sumo. Now it used to be that each stable could have like only two foreign wrestlers, and somewhere in history, I don't know the exact time, but they all started ignoring that. And there's sumo masters that'll go and recruit sumo wrestlers from abroad and bring that talent stateside, because they know if they develop these guys into like really good sumo fighters to represent their stable. And the sumo fighter benefits, especially in the developing countries where maybe they have a skill that isn't going to earn them a lot of money, but you can take that skill again and transfer it to sumo in Japan, which is a developed country, and they're going to make a really good living.
No, did they recruit out of Mongolia specifically, or because
there's definitely like I don't want to say sister city, but there's like recruiting, like serious scouting going on in Mongolia, and Mongolian wrestling to cross over into Japanese sumo.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
big. That's
huge.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, coming on, like I said, I think before we talked about how coming from a stand-up background, facing wrestlers, just a whole whirlwind. You know, when I first started jiu-jitsu, part of me was like, I'm wrestling, and there was an opening where I wanted to punch him in the face. Can't do that. So like, that will work. That's changed now. Now
Yeah.
I finally can flow. But for me, when I get that first arm bar or triangle, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. This is a really good rush. For you, going from wrestling to jiu-jitsu, was there this aha moment, like, wow, this is cool. Is it a bigger or better rush than wrestling?
Can you say that again? So,
Yeah, 'cause I guess there's a rush where you're kind of addicted. You
Yeah.
just get addicted to that submission or
yeah,
your progress.
yeah.
And I guess because you're not practicing, you have wrestling classes.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
teach a very awesome top game.
We have gi, we have no gi. Yeah. I think for me, like what I've always enjoyed is not necessarily the rush, but the process. And the process itself is a rush. So the idea of bettering myself, finding my weaknesses, finding my strengths, understanding my strengths, understanding my weaknesses, understanding my faults, and then making them better. That process, I think I'm addicted to that. I think that's a
interesting.
rush.
That's a martial artist.
And is it?
I think so. Yeah. If I'm going to do a presentation on what a martial artist is,
Yeah.
it's not the end goal. It doesn't matter if it's what color of a belt. It's the process and the journey.
And so but in all honesty, that process is exciting to me. Figuring out where I want to be, where I am now, what are the stepping stones that I need to create for myself or achieve in order to get to, X, Y, and Z.
Okay, what's X, Y, and Z for you right now?
X, Y, and Z for me right now. We just had the World Championships. I'm not a world champion.
At this particular time, you are considered world champion because you've won many tournaments.
Yeah, I've won like a world title, SJJIF or Sports Jiu-Jitsu, SJJF, Sports Jiu-Jitsu Federation. They had a world championships. I won that. Nogi Worlds when I was a brown belt, I won that. In the gi, as a brown belt, I took third at the gi IBJJF Worlds. And then as a black belt, no gi, I took second. So yeah, I've had, a Masters Worlds. I took second one year. I took third one year. Maybe this year I went from third to second. Maybe this year's
That's
first.
right. That's right.
It only makes sense.
Is that the X,
It has to go in that way.
It
right?
does. And that's the X, Y, and Z right now. That's the goal.
Yeah, I mean, my goal is, I want to be a world champion. But I know that I don't just want to be a world champion. I really do want to be a world champion.
Yeah.
That would be fun. That would be fun. It would be a lot of work. I need to do, I feel like my skills and technical skills are pretty close. I've had some really close matches with some of the guys who've placed in the top 3.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's a ridiculous goal. Now it's just a matter of, it's like the last few %.
Right. Razor thin.
Yeah. So like, let's say 100% is never attainable, and on a day where the world championships are held, the best guy performs at 96%.
Compared to the second
guy, 95 and 0.9.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just like this, but it takes 4 years to get up to 80%, and then another 2 to get up to 90% of planning. That planning is really important. You can't just like get together a 12-week training camp. I'm gonna be a world champion this year. I need 12 weeks. I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna be ready. Right. It takes preparing the body. It takes mental preparation in order to get ready for that. For those experiences, for those moments.
Yeah.
So you get up to 90%, and then now you're looking at the last 6%, which is which is really tough. You know, it's everything coming together, a little bit of luck, wind blowing in the right direction,
Right.
you know, training the right way, getting the right amount of sleep, you know, all this. I mean, and I know I'm not just like giving you outside factors, you know, definitely what you do, you know, to prepare is just as important. But
It's exciting.
Yeah.
That's exciting. I didn't know that. A lot of cool things we uncovered today. Eliot Kelly, check him out on social media. I think we're gonna take a quick break.
Okay.
And then the cameras. I think we're gonna head to more audio right now because I think we have more time.
Cool.
All right. So, thanks you guys.